Podcast Perspectives is a show about the latest news in the podcast industry and the people behind it. We began publishing in 2023, and so far have had 86 industry leaders on the show. Nearly half of them CEOs of podcast companies, all of them executives of some kind. In this special episode of Podcast Perspectives, we tapped 22 former show guests and asked them to reflect on this past year and share how they're feeling as we head into 2026. 2025, in my mind, was a year of reckoning. It seems like we had some kind of massive and impactful podcast news story every single week. We saw the closures of Wondery, Pineapple Street, and the ending of WTF with Mark Maron. We saw the acquisitions of Sounds Profitable, Red Seat Ventures, Lemonada, and the Free Press. Cast Media emerged from bankruptcy, Kaleidoscope raised a $5 million Series A, and Q-Code rebranded to Daylight Media. Oxford Road merged with Veritone One. We saw layoffs at The Ringer, PBS, and HeadGum, and a whole lot of things from the US government and the CPB. We saw the launch of Inception Point AI, Megyn Kelly Media, and the Unwell Creative Agency. And coming out of the haze of all of these developments, video podcasts began hitting the streaming services. The Ringer shows on Netflix, New Heights on Amazon Prime, Call Her Daddy and the Unwell Network on SiriusXM, Spotify's partner program launch, YouTube continuing to develop into a major player in the space, the Diary of a CEO podcast sold out theaters across the UK, and the Golden Globes have announced a podcast category, however controversial it may seem. AI continues to be the biggest story everyone's watching, though I hesitate to consider this a strictly podcasting storyline. It's changing our world in different ways each day and in every industry, and whatever brilliant ideas I share today will no longer be accurate tomorrow. Revenue streams are shifting. There are continuing moves by all the major players to push more shows to programmatic while saving the lucky few for direct brand deals. And simultaneously, we're seeing that programmatic ad delivery is having issues at every step. Clever companies, orgs, and creators are building out systems for other IP streams, communities, premium content, derivative IP like books and TV shows, live events, and more. In fact, despite the slew of changes in the space, many podcast companies announced higher revenue than ever in 2025. None of this is inherently a bad thing. Amidst these major shifts in consolidation, deal-making, industry right-sizing, video podcasts, and arguments over narrative versus chat shows, nearly everyone I speak to in the space is still optimistic about what's to come. We're seeing a whole slew of creators entering the podcast space for the first time. There seems to be a lot of opportunity for the orgs that are still operating, and there oddly seems to be more money than ever in podcasting. From my vantage point, video podcasts are able to attract people to the medium in a way that we haven't seen historically. It's opening new revenue streams for production companies, and in some ways it's great. It also continues to create a broadening gulf between the haves and have-nots in the space, as many people aren't able to take the leap into this new medium due to the resource constraints, know-how, or desire. Whatever 2026 brings, it will keep us on our toes. But we're in luck, as we're now going to let 22 of the smartest people in the industry walk you through their own ideas of what's to come in 2026. And stay tuned until the end of the episode to hear everyone's favorite podcast of the year. I want to take 1 minute to thank you all again for listening to the show over the last year. Shoot us an email at listen@thepodglomerate.com and let us know who you'd like to hear from next year, whether it's a guest or a topic or just to say hi. Thank you again, and we're going to begin with a prediction from Adam McNeil of Adopter Media.
I'm still bullish on podcast advertising, but only for people who actually know what they're doing. The medium itself is still unmatched. A host read ad from someone the audience actually trusts still can move product better than most algorithmic platforms like Meta or YouTube. But the industry itself, it's still in an awkward teenager phase. Too many middlemen, too much smoke and mirrors, and way too little accountability. Everybody's still obsessed with downloads, which isn't a very verifiable number. We're going to move into listens. That's going to be way more important for the future of this industry. So what I believe is going to happen in the next year, maybe 2 or 3, is a purge. I think the buyers, the agencies, and brands who can't prove performance are going to get washed out, and we're going to have a new foundation built on real data. And those who can connect that data to the results that they're delivering are going to win, and they're going to be the next big wave of buyers or brands in the space. So yeah, I'm very optimistic about the future of podcast ads. Right now, we're in a very neutral state, and I would love to see a bit of a shakeup in the coming year.
I'm Alexia Betta, partner at Claris Law. I am feeling excited and challenged about the industry going into 2026. I say these two things because the deal-making space is getting increasingly more complex, nuanced, and requires that much more creativity in order to get a deal done. How you reach an audience, all of the different ways in which you increase and engage with your community, you increase community engagement. Those are all things that need to be thought about at the deal making stage, and make sure that the party that has the right way of connecting with an audience has those rights. We will, I think, increasingly see rights that are held on a non-exclusive basis by multiple parties. And who says non-exclusivity says complexity, because saying the rights are held non-exclusively sounds great, but if it's not clear exactly how that's going to work in practice, then it's an issue. And I think the role of business negotiators and lawyers is going to be to set those really clear roadmaps for these increasingly complicated and interesting relationships that are going to be set. Specifically, I think we're going to see a lot more detail on licensing revenue as streamers become increasingly interested in licensing existing podcasts to their platforms, how that licensing revenue is accounted for, who has the right to control that, how does that dovetail with film and TV rights, which are usually held closer to the vest by talent. All of those things are going to need to be thought of together and are going to make for really interesting deals.
And next up, we have Amanda McLaughlin, CEO of Multitude Productions.
I'm feeling really energized and hopeful about this industry in 2026. I feel like in 2025, a lot of us took stock of what we've been doing for a decade plus in some cases and what we want to be doing moving forward in a world where entertainment, media, access to news has all become even more important and fraught than it's ever been. I think podcasting is a really unique opportunity to bring people together and build community in digital spaces, even for local in-person impact. So I am excited about the community building that we will be doing at Multitude in 2026. And I'm excited to see what my colleagues in the podcast industry will be making with so many tools at our disposal.
Hi, my name is Brian Barletta, and I'm the founder of Sounds Profitable and the president of Podcast Movement. Podcasting as an industry has never been stronger. There's more opportunity for small teams than in any other industry I've seen. At the same time, inbound work and easy projects have kind of dried up. While the word may be used for more than we originally defined it for, at its core, it still means audio forward, creator owned, and on demand. Podcasting is allowing us to revisit ideas creators and influencers have tried before that have failed and finding greater success this time around. I really believe that podcasting's strength lies in the comfort of repeating our value for the 17th time with the enthusiasm of it being the first time.
Hi, I'm Kathy Sukis, the CEO and founder of AdLarge and the Forward Network. 2025 has been an amazing year of growth and learning. The current state of the podcast industry reflects this. Innovation remains a daily requirement. Keep up or get left behind. I say it all the time. I believe also a key trend is collaboration. We're seeing it everywhere. Companies are partnering and coming together for greater outcomes. Collaboration is constant and helps the industry evolve. In 2026, we will see podcasters and brands leaning in more heavily on an omni-channel strategy. Podcasters are evolving into their own brand empires, and all I can see is growth in audience, creative new ways to partner with brands, and expanding revenue streams. I believe 2026 will be an explosive, transformative year of success.
I'm Dusty Weiss. I'm the president and founder of Podcamp Media, and to me, 2026 is starting to feel a lot like an inflection point because of this wrong-headed push to outsource the role of podcast host to artificial intelligence. We all read the article. We all know who I'm talking about. We know why they're doing it. Because humans are expensive, and wouldn't it be great if we could just monetize the output of an algorithm? But that doesn't benefit listeners, it doesn't benefit society, and it does not benefit the podcast industry. We all get a smaller pot of ad revenue for those who take the time to create quality programming. We get fewer well-paying jobs, and the very few new jobs that this creates, managing the AI prompts for thousands of AI podcast bots, can you imagine a less fulfilling, more meaningless existence? And the question becomes, is this an issue that motivates the leaders in our industry to stand up and say, no thanks? Do the podcast trade pubs, the associations, do they stand up and push back? Do we leverage organizations like the Podcast Academy to protect our profession? Do we tell the platforms that AI-generated slop does not belong in the same bucket as Serial and The Daily and Morbid, and even, the Joe Rogan Experience? Or do we twiddle our thumbs while Silicon Valley cuts the beating heart out of a vibrant industry where people once came for a hit of human connection?
Hi, everyone. I'm Fatima Zaidi, and I'm the founder and CEO of Quill and co host. I think in 2026, we'll see more business leaders stepping into podcasting to share ideas, build thought leadership, and connect with audiences who follow people, not just brands. Audiences are definitely drawn to authenticity. We've already seen research that shows 70% of consumers feel more connected when a CEO is active in content, and 72% of consumers feel similarly when employees share information about that brand online. With that in mind, leaders who step away from the logo and the sales pitch and prioritize audience first content, offering value and insight and connection, will really earn loyalty far beyond what any campaign or ad could possibly achieve.
And now here's Harry Morton, CEO of Lower Street Media.
I'm feeling hopeful about 2026 in podcasting. The closures and the layoffs that we've seen this year have been horrendous, and the pain of that's been felt across the industry. But as we look ahead, I see a lot of reasons to be cheerful. I think, we can look at the IAB announcement of us hitting that 3 billion mark. There's some discussion as to whether that's a growth in audio podcasting or whether that's sort of incremental lift as a result of the YouTube side. But regardless, it's brands investing more money into what they are calling podcasting, which can only be a good thing for all of us, or at least for most of us.
Hey everyone, it's Jess at Lemonada Media, and as always, I'm optimistic about 2026. I think 2026 on the business side is going to become the year of sustainability and profitability and trying to really figure out how to make things work for everyone. I'm probably biased in running a company that has to do that anyway, but more than ever, I think that will be incredibly important, and making shows that are viable from day one and the costs align with the potential profits wherever they may come from, which leads me to what I think is going to be the theme of 2026, which is community. People really want to vibe with other people who love their shows. And so I think we'll all be building out exciting ways to do that, whether it's the tried and true live events or digital engagement.
Hi, I'm Katie Conans, head of digital outreach at NASA, and specifically for NASA Plus. This year, I'm feeling hopeful because the old model was to inform the public, but the new model is really to invite them into the process. Across the industry, we're starting to see brands and major media distributors change the game by thinking of audiences less as consumers and more as collaborators. And I think the introduction of digital creators has only accelerated this. This phase of the industry is really a prime spot for podcasts to surge in because we already know what the audience needs in this moment. Whether it's audio or video, whether it's enhanced by AI, or we're looking at consolidation and thinking about how to be really smart with resources, I think podcasting is going to be less about the medium and more about what makes this craft so significant. And that really is our unique ability to connect with audiences, foster real learning, a connection, and really create space for honest conversation, which I think a lot of people are really craving right now. And what excites me most is the rise of multidisciplinary storytelling, thinking about this convergence where two disciplines meet. So if we're thinking about having artists in a room with an astronaut, for example, if we have journalists working alongside scientists, creative teams working and learning from each other rather than competing with each other, I think that opens up the opportunity for something incredibly unique. This is where real curiosity takes root, and that's where the magic begins.
Hi, I'm Leah Reese-Dennis, head of podcasts at Odyssey. I'm feeling good about the podcast industry headed into 2026. There are still a lot of brands who aren't spending in podcasting, and even if we do face economic headwinds, we know that podcasting and audio in general have proven time and again to be excellent investments for brands. On the content side, there will always be new talent to develop, existing talent who want to get into podcasting, and new audiences who discover the shows we already have on our slate. I find it interesting looking ahead to see how the major networks might attempt to differentiate themselves and refine their content strategy. I think that increasingly not every network will make sense for every category of show. So I'm keeping an eye on whether clear lanes will start to form. For instance, heading into 2026, Odyssey is really focused on growing our sports portfolio. So we hope that when a major sports talent wants to develop a podcast, the question isn't just which network will give me the most money, but which network is really best positioned across its assets to be a true partner here.
Hi, I'm Odile Benifla, head of US at Ausha, a podcast marketing platform. I'm really optimistic about the podcast industry as we head into 2026 for two main reasons. First, we're seeing a major shift. Podcasting is no longer this closed ecosystem debating RSS feeds or definitions. After the podcast election last year, people realized how much podcasting is shaping our culture and opinions. Brands and organizations that understand the power of podcasting. Our world is ruled by 5-second videos designed to trigger emotions, and podcasting brings us back to real conversation, listening, reflection, open dialogue, and trust. And that's something our society really needs. Second, audience growth has become everyone's priority. Creators, brands, networks, agencies, people are finally realizing how essential it is to market their show. Alex Cooper from Call Her Daddy said it so well recently. She said, none of this would work if I wasn't thinking like a marketer. Every single day I'm thinking, how can I push my podcast? We also see a growing interest for organic marketing, which is growth without paid ads, which can be so powerful. It's not yet well understood, but the interest is there. And that's where AI comes in. With AI, you can generate hyper accurate transcriptions of your show, which becomes the foundation for all the marketing content. Your titles, descriptions, tags, newsletters, social media, even your podcast website. All this optimization is organic growth in action and concrete steps that any podcaster can take to grow their audience.
I'm Greta Cohn, and I'm the CEO of Pushkin Industries. I am feeling positive about the state of the industry as we head into 2026. I think there are still untapped opportunities in the space. Something that I'm keeping my eye on is that podcasts will become the next wave of best-selling books. Many podcast companies were built on the promise of IP development, in particular to TV and film. But if you're not considering books and audiobooks as part of this pipeline, you're missing out. I think 2026 will be the year that we see more podcasts and podcasters stepping into the book space. Why? Audiobooks are a growing market with lots of opportunity. There is some overlap between podcast and audiobook listeners, but we can bring them closer together. Creatively, it opens up new storytelling opportunities. From a business standpoint, it diversifies monetization. It literally just makes sense to sell a product direct to consumers. And it can open the door to more discovery. Through podcasts, listeners can find audiobooks. Through books and audiobooks, readers can find podcasts, and everyone becomes your potential new audience.
Hi, my name is Eric Barnett. I'm the Vice President of Revenue for Supporting Cast. And my 2026 podcasting prediction, at least on the subscription front, is going to be community. That is the hot word that we're hearing right now in the subscription space, is people looking to build communities around their podcasts and their subscribers and how to cultivate that. I think you're going to be hearing that a lot more for people that are looking up to set up paid subscriptions. And I will say, I think it is the right direction to go for podcasting as a whole, but I will say buyer beware. It does take a little bit more work than I think people are used to be able to cultivate that community. And my personal belief is that most indie shows will probably see success with setting up a community and having community benefits like user forums, as long as they're willing to engage with that community. And then on the side, for more of larger networks and things that are more celebrity focused, might be more difficult depending on that level of engagement that you see from the hosts or other people being willing to take the time to cultivate and be a part of that community as well too.
Hi, I'm Lex Friedman, the founder and sole proprietor of Lex Friedman Consulting. I'm very lucky I got that job because the company has my name. So how am I feeling about the state of the industry as we head into 2026? I'm feeling good about it. I'm not feeling great about it. It's not that big companies are ruining podcasting. It's that big companies are hoping podcasting is something it isn't. Big companies wanted it to be a lottery, or not even a lottery, but gambling with the biggest fallacy that gamblers can get into. Hey, if we just keep spending more money on this roulette wheel, maybe we'll finally win big. And yeah, you can overspend. You can spend incredibly heavily to get giant minimum guarantees on giant shows. And those will attract advertisers and those will attract listeners, and you can make a lot of money on them. But you can't pay yourself back for minimum guarantees that are too gigantic. And then you've skewed the market for everybody. The biggest challenge facing the industry overall to me is that it's really hard to scale host-read ads, which are far and away the most effective ads. I don't object to pre-produced spots. I don't object to programmatic ads, but they have to be sprinkled in. They have to be like a seasoning. You can't put too much garlic on the food or nobody wants to eat it. So those host-read ads are so effective and so compelling, and they can be so lucrative, but they're tough to scale. It's hard for a sales team, a sales staff to know every show in a portfolio of 200 shows and sell host-reads for all of them. All which is to say, I'm nervous about the industry, but I'm not panicky. There's two different things there. I think we're going to continue to see these upstarts that are these mid-sized companies that focus on the shows that aren't the giants. And we're going to see those companies continue to launch and continue to thrive because there's so much space in that middle.
Hey, it's Chris Peterson, VP of Business Development at Red Seat Ventures, and I'm feeling incredibly awesome about the current state of the industry. I think the last couple of years, we've seen companies focus on creating sustainable business models centered around profitability. And now those companies are in a position to start scaling in a smart way. And that may mean that they're going to scale themselves organically, or maybe they're acquired or they start acquiring companies. I think that a lot of companies in 2026 will start focusing on more than just content or more than just technology, and maybe marrying the two to create more value. But most importantly, I think there's never been a better time to be a creator, and forget about the word podcaster. You're really just creating the next wave of media. Wherever people consume it is where you've got to be. It's not just an RSS feed. It's not just audio, and it's not just video on YouTube. You've got to have fast channels. You've got to think bigger if you really want to grow a scaled company. That's exactly what we're doing at Red Seat Ventures with Fox and Tubi, creating new opportunities for creators to really grow their brand and take the next step.
And of course, here's Dan Meisner, co-founder of Bumper.
As we head into 2026, I am feeling optimistic about the state of the industry. And the reason I feel optimistic is because I have a vantage point that lets me see a lot of shows' numbers. And for many of them, the numbers are headed in the right direction. When we look at the number of people listening to podcasts and watching podcasts, that number's going up. When I look at the number of times people hit play, the frequency with which they come back, that's going up. And when I look at the total amount of time spent with at least the shows that Bumper works with, it's headed in the right direction. And so that to me is really cause for optimism that more people are coming back again and again and spending more time with the shows that we work with. And if that's true for much of the industry, I think there's a lot of reason to be optimistic.
I'm Pete Berstinger, and I'm the founder and CEO of Podscribe, the leading measurement provider in audio. I'm feeling great about podcasting. The industry has been growing up over the past 2 years. There's still a long way to go, but culturally, podcasts are as exciting and as relevant as ever. Everyone saw the huge impact podcasts had in the 2024 election. More and more today, almost everybody knows how valuable podcasts can be in getting information, being educated, and just passing a long drive or a tedious errand with long-form content that poses a nice contrast to the short-form soundbite social media world that we live in today. Of course, today it is, ironically enough, harder than ever to actually define a podcast with the explosion of video on both Spotify and YouTube. So that is, to me, one of the biggest challenges that the industry faces right now, both in terms of how to serve ads to different video platforms, how to upload content, how to count impressions, and perhaps quite relevant for me, how to measure those impressions. I think in 2026, we're going to come closer than ever to solving many of those problems. There is a lot of opportunity here to bring the space to the next level, and I think we're going to get there in 2026.
Hi, my name is Sean Howard. I'm the CEO of FlightPath Software, and I'm feeling great about the year. I think that we saw the move into the space of new money, new spend by traditional brands. We've also seen a significant shift into video that has been really great.
Hi, I'm Sharon Taylor. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer of Triton Digital, and I'm feeling super positive and ready for the challenges ahead for the podcasting year to come in 2026. I think revenue is up and going to continue growing, usage is up and going to continue growing, and you know you're doing something right as an industry when 3 or more huge tech titan platforms all want to get involved and fight for audience. I really want us as an industry to figure out video both delivery, monetization, while remaining open in the ecosystem and the measurement standard next year. And so I think that's one of the big challenges that we're going to have to grapple with. But I know we can do it because we did it for audio. And the most important thing for podcasting is to remain open and available for the entire ecosystem.
Hey, this is Tom Webster, a partner at Sounds Profitable. And I'm feeling pretty optimistic as we head into 2026. And I think what many people perceived as a problem and that we couldn't really nail a definition of podcasting, I think is a tremendous opportunity for us if you have a tolerance for ambiguity. Because those definitions are so messy, I think we get to call a lot of things podcasting, and that means we can claim more territory. I think that means we need to be smarter about how we measure the industry. I'm not talking about downloads. I'm talking about the size. I'm talking about the money that goes into the industry. So I'm very, very bullish on podcasting. I think we're going to claim a lot of territory in 2026.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Lavoie. I lead podcasting at New Hampshire Public Radio, and I also have my own podcasting company and host the podcast Crime Writers On. As we head into 2026, I have very mixed feelings. As always, I'm excited about narrative audio. I see huge opportunities given all of the consolidation and layoffs and lack of prioritization of narrative. I think places like public media can do an incredible job filling in a real need for audio journalism. As for video, I used to be a little more down on it, but I've come to realize that if I were building my own shows, like Crime Writers On or These Are Their Stories Today, they would 100% either be video first or video also. I don't think every show is suited for video. I don't think narrative is suited for video. I don't think some interview shows are particularly suited for video, although many are. But I'm excited about the growing opportunities for video-first podcasts and what that seems to be doing to stimulate, again, an indie creator community, something that has kind of been missing from the podcast opportunity world for a while. Indies are reticent to jump in because they don't see monetization happening at smaller audience levels. And they're worried about companies really focusing on like huge shows like New Heights and so forth. But there is a big opportunity still with video first podcasting. So I hope people do it, but I hope they also pay attention to what makes a good podcast, like knowing who it's for, making it interesting, and if you can, doing a little editing.
And that brings me to, I think, my favorite podcast from this year. I'm biased to all the Lemonada ones, but I'm going to go with Steve Burns' Alive because I just think it's so different and so needed at a time where we're divided and stressed and trying to figure it all out. Having Steve Burns from Blue's Clues help us adult is a pretty awesome freaking thing.
The podcast that I love listening to this year is Worlds Beyond Number. It's a D&D playthrough with Brennan Lee Mulligan as the GM.
The podcast that I'm enjoying the most that I'd love for everyone to check out is Post Games by Chris Plant. It's a weekly podcast about how and why we love video games.
I really have enjoyed listening to the Tamsin show. She's making such an impact, and I learned so much from that show.
My favorite show of 2025 was What We Spend.
I've got to say it's been The Rest is Politics. I think Goalhanger do an incredible job with that show. I'm completely addicted. I listen to pretty much every episode.
My favorite show this year is How Is This Better?, hosted by Akilah Hughes. The only way I can engage with the news is through Akilah's voice.
Definitely The Europeans. It's a show about European news, politics, culture. It's funny, it's serious, and I'm constantly learning something new about Europe.
I continue to love Hello from the Magic Tavern. I continue to love Judge John Hodgman, and I'm ecstatic about the return of Heavyweight. And I'm grateful to Pushkin for bringing that show back.
The Chinatown Sting from Pushkin is, to me, an example of how narrative storytelling continues to evolve. This is a particularly thoughtful and journalistic example of true crime. It's so well reported, so wonderfully produced, and I'm really very proud of the work that our team did on it.
My favorite show of the year, and which has been for a while, is The Town, which I think is just a great look behind the curtain for anyone who's really interested in the entertainment industry.
My favorite podcast of 2025 was the very excellent Go Boy from Campside Media.
My favorite ones from this year have been Hyperfix with Alex Goldman. Just love what he's doing with that show. It's been a pleasure to listen to every single week. And also Shortwave by NPR. For me, it's just some of the good news to have around. I like hearing about science, and it's great.
Favorite podcast of the year so far has been Hawat Weekly, HWAT Weekly.
My favorite show at the moment is We're Here to Help, which is a HeadGum podcast and well worth a listen.
One of my favorite shows that I've been listening to recently is The Game by Alex Hormozy, where I've been getting a lot of good business advice.
One of my favorite shows ended this year. The show is called Self-Hosted, and after many years, the co-hosts decided they wanted to tie a bow around it and wrap it up, and I applaud them for that. Not every show is meant to last forever. Not every show need run in perpetuity.
Bittersweet, but I got to give it to Mark Maron going out in style with an interview with Obama. I just thought the final run was really great. And while I will miss the podcast, it's kind of nice that he went out on his own terms. So I'm going to miss the show, but thanks for all the great content over the years, Mark.
For more podcast-related news, info, and takes, you can follow me on LinkedIn at Jeff Umbro. Podcast Perspectives is a production of The Podglomerate. If you're looking for help producing, marketing, or monetizing your podcast, you can find us at podglomerate.com, shoot us an email at listen@thepodglomerate.com, or follow us on all socials at PodglomeratepOds. This episode was produced by myself, Jeff Umbro, Chris Boniello, and Jose Roman. This episode was edited and mixed by Henry Lavoie. Thank you to our marketing team, Joni Deutsch, Madison Richards, Morgan Swift, Aaron Weiss, and a special thank you to Dan Christo.